Hello, everyone, and welcome back to MUP Halo, the only Halo Flashpoint show that records a regular episode just before news drops, so we have to do an entire episode just about news. I'm your host, Wiki Dave, and with me, as always, I've got James-005. How are you doing, James?
Good morning, Dave. Yeah, I'm getting a cold, but otherwise great. Thanks.
Yeah, I think everyone's getting sick at the moment. Even though you guys are in summer, I'm in winter. It's still the flu or something's going around the world and infecting us all. But that's not why we're here. We want to get straight into the news. So let's dive into it. There we go. We always have to have our little intro. So we're going to start off simple. So we'll start off simple with the app update. So the Halo Companion app was recently updated with a whole bunch of wicked things, which actually, I think they announced it as we were just about to release the episode. So, James, you've got a little bit more insight because you are the local tournament goer. Well, how do you feel about those updates?
So it's a good set of updates, right? So a lot of these, the quality of life improvements that we've identified. The app has been kind of in beta. I don't know if it's out of beta now, or it's its last month of beta. It's certainly its last month of trial pricing. So the app will go from about $1.17 to about $3, I believe, at the end of this month. The updates kind of do a number of quality of life things. So it's much easier to submit lists. When you're going to an event, that's much more accessible now through the event itself. That's incredibly helpful. We've seen they've done a bit of an update to see how many people have submitted lists as a sort of a proxy for how many people are attending an event. I still think that could be a little bit stronger. I think the challenge really is, at the point you're submitting your list, you're paid up, you've agreed to travel. I think that's all very well for an event that's happening in 3 weeks' time. I think for people needing to make slightly further afield, family commitments or travel plans, I don't think it adds a great deal, but it's still a nice feature to have. They've made a really significant improvement to the way keywords appear on cards in the app. You can now click on pretty much every keyword or every item or weapon, and it will give you the rules for it. That makes just the app a lot easier to kind of navigate, a lot easier to find the rules you're after. So that tagging system's much, much better. And then probably the last thing really is added badges and rankings. There's an article about that on the Halo site. That isn't massively functional yet, but it's certainly getting there. And these give players, ultimately longer term, will give players things to earn for in the kind of upcoming seasons, things they want to. Things they'll be able to earn, things they'll be able to go for, which aren't just winning. And I think that's really important when you want to drive, attendance at your organised play and organised play is there to get more people playing more games. So I think all of that's really positive. Probably a little bit, I think the badges may be a little bit, what's the right phrasing? Given they're going to go to two seasons of 6 months, I think the badges might be a little bit harsh in terms of the participation. Currently, the badge ranks up, so you rank up through the ranks from cadet to private, or however it works through, every couple of events you go to. I think in a 6 month span, I think it's quite interesting to see how many events you would need to attend in order to get some of those top ranks. Like you might need to play every day of every weekend to kind of get towards the top of that. So I do think that they might want to calibrate that a little bit, but we'll absolutely see as we kind of close out season 0 and move into season 1.
Yeah, so looking at it right now, the ranks have been I think they have been applied. You're a private. You're number 1 still on the top of the ranks, with 5 events being a private. But it looks like once you attend 4 events, you rank up to private. And then I think the only person that is a Lance Corporal, the next one up from private, is Dylan, and he's got 6 events there. So I think maybe you go up ranks quite quickly once you get past those initial junior ranks. But because looking at Dylan already, but I can't tell whether that's just about events or it's about points. There's so many aspects to it. because it looks like on the top 10 people for the global ranks, Dylan's attended the most, and he's got the highest rank, despite the fact he's not at the top either. So I think it's got to do with how many events you attend. So you could start to see it escalate up the ranks, however that works. I'm surprised they didn't give us a breakdown for it, to be honest.
I think, yeah, the article is a little bit, just a little bit unclear or like non-specific, which would be a general criticism of Mantic. They're very good at giving you information in a way that is not specific enough to necessarily know what they meant. So that's an interesting one. But I mean, certainly this is fantastic to see. It's a great update to the app. If you're playing Halo regularly, the app is well worth a subscription now. And certainly I've got a subscription. Well, technically I've got two due to a billing error, which I've got to get sorted out with Mantic. Currently I'm getting billed twice for it, but I need to get that sorted out. So, but definitely well worth a subscription. And sort of these updates, particularly if they continue to update it, I think that'll give you everything you need, including rapid rules updates when they need to make a change or an errata.
Yeah, I mean, with the billing update, if anyone does have a problem, definitely message Mantic. They're very good at eventually fixing it. I had an issue with Vault. I got billed double charge Vault for the Mantic Vault for quite a few months, and I finally got that rectified as well. So definitely jump onto that. But yeah, I would agree with what you said there. Mantic's very good with coming up with these really cool ideas, but I think they also forget when they're executing the ideas is their fan base are a group of nerds that really care about the finer details of everything. So when you release something, a new feature, a new way of doing things, we want everything on the table. We want to know exactly how that works, how can we manipulate it, how can we use it in our games to the best of our ability. And if it's ever vague, that's when you kind of lose people a few bit. And I mean, I don't think they meant to do it intentionally, but I think they forget when they're releasing it. We're a whole bunch of nerds that like to nitpick everything. So if you don't give us everything as clear as day, we're going to assume the worst because that's just the nature of us being nerds. So I completely understand where you're coming from there, James.
Cool.
All right. So should we move along to, before we get into the big announcement, the organized play announcement? Did you want to go through that?
Yeah, so I think this one happened to drop. I think within minutes of us finishing recording the last episode, which was excellent timing on our part there. So most of you have seen this already. The headline is kind of your ability to get your face on a Spartan by finishing number one in your region. But under there, I think there's a lot more kind of interesting kind of news, right? So it's kind of confirmation. I know we've probably talked about this before, but I think it's the first time we've seen the kind of confirmation that the organised play seasons are going to be 2 a year, kicking off in November and May, which is quite good. It's a faster cycle than I've seen in other things historically. Most things have run an annual season, but that gives you sort of 2 seasons a year, November and May. Certainly when they launch in November, they're going to have new scenarios. It's a little bit unclear if they're entirely all new scenarios or a mix of kind of existing and reworked, but that's really important. So one of the ways to inject content into your game and keep players interested, keep giving players things to play with and things to work on and new experiences is scenarios. And the advantage of doing things through scenarios is you're not charging the player for those, right? So it's not another box of models you've got to pay for. It's content that lets you play with the stuff you've already bought in a new way. And also, from a Mantic perspective, it's not a new product that got to ship, physically. So it create, new scenarios being regularly introduced is a huge kind of boon to play. Gives casual players more things to do. Gives organised players new puzzles to solve. It's a really good thing. So I'm really pleased to see that coming. We've got the balance patch coming in October ahead of season. What will be season 1 in November. That's really good to hear. We'll talk a little bit more about, I think, in a future episode about what we'd like to see from the balance patch. I have some specific thoughts. It's kind of a topic of kind of regular conversation with the players I talk to. And then, so I think that's kind of the core of that announcement. I mean, the other thing to say about these scenarios and sort of having plenty of scenarios in the game, it allows you to have kind of different events. So an event with a set of scenarios A, you can build a list for. Then if the next event's got a set of scenarios B, you can build a different list for that. That means you're not playing the same list every time. If you were playing, the same missions every single event, or you were playing from, say, a fixed random pool of missions every event, you would basically effectively refine one list to the point that it would be the same list every time, and lists would get incredibly samey. As it is, with new scenarios, you've got list evolution. So there was an event at the weekend that I sadly couldn't get to, where an absolutely fantastic list written by Chris Fox won the event. It's not like anything you'd ever seen before. It's a 3-wide Spartan list with no Master Chief. Really innovative list, but that can only happen because you're rotating a pool of kind of known scenarios ahead of an event, which is just great to see. And more power to Chris for that kind of innovation. I think that keeps the game lively and engaging for those of us that play regularly. So really all really good news.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes and competitive. So I'm going to get you to put on your experience hat here. With the 6-month seasons, what are the pros and cons that you've witnessed with, what are the negatives of doing this way? Because obviously I don't have as much experience as you do when it comes to going through tournaments and different game systems and different games in general. And as you said, most of them do it on a yearly schedule. So what do you see as a positive doing it by the 6 month, and obviously a negative as well?
Yeah, and so games survive or games die. Basically, games die when there's no more content, right? Because players are in a constant state of discovering the experience through that game, right? This is why Magic the Gathering releases sets on a regular basis. This is why GW are always shaking their meta up. This is why Mantic is releasing new things. So, and the reason why games more or less die the moment no new content is coming out for them, or certainly experience, a very rapid and significant decline. So what you have that kind of incentive to keep new, fresh content coming. What seasons, sort of ways organised play seasons can help with that is we talked about sort of that ability to kind of introduce new scenarios and create resets so there are new things to do through new scenarios. Content is always coming out for every game, always at the wrong speed. And I say that because for some players, content comes out too quickly and they can't keep up. For other players, it doesn't come out quickly enough and they get bored, right? That's the sort of the two extremes. And everybody's somewhere in that scale, right, for every game. Worth remembering, if you're listening to this and if you got up at 5 o'clock in the morning as I did to record a podcast about this, you are at the upper echelons of your engagement with this game, right? So you are going to be more engaged with this than the average player by some margin, right? Now that's just the truism of any kind of game system. So what we're trying to do, so these seasons, back towards the question you were edging gently back towards the question you actually asked me, Dave. Having these, so the pros of having seasons is it gives you a natural reset. It gives players sort of some new things to chew on, particularly where you introduce new content, new scenarios as part of those seasons. It gives you an opportunity to kind of reset. So in terms of pace, with a 6-monthly season, you're having a reasonably short turnaround. That means if you're having a good season, or a bad season, gives you a reset and a break, because I understand that they're going to reset the rankings. In previous iterations of this system, they roll for it. They're a rolling season, so rankings will be your events would drop off after 12 months. What it means, I think, having a short cycle. If, for example, you had to, in a 6-month cycle, then bearing in mind Christmas is always an odd time. So some of these cycles might actually be a little bit shorter, at least kind of in terms of material kind of gaming time. 6 months, you've got kind of, if you have to take a month off or a couple of months off due to life stuff, it means on one hand you've kind of got for that season you might be at quite a disadvantage, but it's a short season, so you can hop back onto the next season. It kind of creates good jumping in points for people because there's always a new season coming. There's a reset. It's not everybody knows everything. It lets kind of any established play patterns potentially be kind of broken up through changes in the rules, through errata, through scenario changes. So I think it should keep the game fresh. Just a slight worry is a jumping on point is also a jumping off point. It creates a little bit more risk that they need to make these. They've got to do twice as much work as they would on an annual cycle to keep these refreshes engaging for players, which is the ultimate sort of test of these things. But I'm excited about this. I think it'd be really interesting to see how it goes. And one thing about Mantic is they will adjust course as needed. So I'm sure, if it proves that a 6-month season is too short, I'm sure there's something it's a very easy fix for a future iteration.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that I have in my head, and obviously I don't go to a lot of tournaments, so I don't know if this is actually a problem or not, but it feels like it will cause 6 months of pressure for the player to attend every single event in order to stay competitive. But if it was spread over a year, you could drop a couple and still be in for a chance of winning the thing. I mean, does that make sense? Is that a realistic kind of concern, or is that not really something that happens?
I mean, I think that's a realistic concern. This depends massively on sort of so many sliding variables here, right? Like, it depends a little bit on how frequent your events are and their accessibility to you, right? So, you only need 4 ranked events to get a score, right? So, nominally, you can be world number 1, UK number 1, regional number 1, whatever it is, with only 4 events attended. If you operate like me, I broadly kind of my broad agreement with my tolerant and loving partner is I get about 1 tournament every 4 weeks, plus anything else I could sneak onto the calendar when she's not watching. But broadly, I get 1 tournament every kind of 4 weeks. So across a 6-month cycle, I can reasonably expect to do something in the region. I guess do something in the region of sort of 7 tournaments, right? So now that assumes the availability of 7 tournaments, and it assumes I'm time richer. This is my primary hobby. Obviously, if I was also following a sports ball game or doing various other things that might curtail my time. It really depends on your level of investment. I think asking players for 4 weekend days out of a 6-month period is probably reasonable, because there's other things you can do, right? You can make it the best 3 scores, the best 5 scores. There's lots of variables you can tune here, but it will come down to people's appetite to play and the availability of events to play in. How that kind of shakes out, I think.
Yeah, interesting. And I'll just throw it out there. If anyone's got concerns, inputs they want to have with that, just flick us a comment on the YouTube or on the Spotify, and we'll read it out, because it's going to be an interesting discussion point over the course of the evolution of this game, of how this is going to evolve. Because it sounds a little bit unique, but also it really depends on how they adapt, whether the game will survive, and we've seen so many games sink just because they don't adapt quick enough, and that's the long and the short of it. People move on. People's attention spans are a little bit shorter, and also people's wallets are a little bit smaller, so they don't always have all the time to invest into every product, so they kind of just move on to one they can put the most time into. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Cool. All right, so should we dive into do you want to talk about the release schedule or the actual product?
I don't mind. Shall we do? We do a very quick bit on release schedule, because a lot of the online chatter I saw. So obviously the main thrust of this is this episode is going to be feet first into hell, right? And that kind of new release. What we did, what I did want to just mention, I think, because I saw a lot of sort of initial, it's another big box, right, in the online. So I did just want to talk about that a little bit. So I think it's bear in mind, like, a lot of people have said this is the 3rd big box in a year. I mean, it isn't really, because we've got to remember, that Spartan Edition, the original Halo game, launched last year. So, around the end of October, beginning of November. So this is launching in the same spot. This new big box is launching in the same spot as a Spartan Edition launched last year. So it's kind of 2 big boxes a year. And sort of, I did a quick bit of kind of rough adding up. All of my adding up is rough, as my colleagues will tell you. We're talking about, I think that if you add up the cost of all of the kind of the gameplay stuff, so the stuff with rules attached to it, that was kind of released this year, the kind of yearly product cost in my country about £275, something a bit under that. With an app subscription added on, they're asking for about 25, 26 quid a month in my local currency, which is significantly lower than the investment for any of the other IP-based games. I've played Marvel Crisis Protocol, I've played Shatterpoint. They're asking for way more often in terms of kind of financial commitment to play their game and keep up. And I think it's just useful kind of grounder in saying, like, wargaming's an expensive hobby. This is still, for my money, significantly cheaper than the other kind of IP-based options. And I haven't done a comparison to, Lord knows what it would cost if you were playing 40k or something.
Now, to play devil's advocate, it is cheaper than other IPs, but in my particular currency, 2 boxes, just exactly what you said, plus the shipping on top of that, is actually $629 for a year, which does add up quite a lot. That's pretty much two rents for me, 2 months rent. Oh no, 1 month's rent, I should say. And that's being very, very generous if the landlord isn't too mean about me being late on a payment. So I can understand how people say it can start to rack up a little bit. And I think it's just the fact of that's everyone's feelings with everything at the moment. Everything is getting tighter. Everything's getting a little bit more expensive. And luckily, I'm in New Zealand. James is in the UK. We haven't even mathed in how much it's going to cost the US, especially with all the tariffs and all that fun stuff. That's fun stuff is happening as well. So yeah, I can kind of see both sides of it. Is that yes, it's not as bad as other IPs. It's still not exactly cheap. So it's kind of like it's kind of in the middle. Luckily, I'm a huge Halo fan. Always been a Halo fan all my life. Got a Halo helmet, as you saw from my unboxing video. I can put some money aside for everything that I'm saving up for my surgery. So I mean, it all comes down to the hobby and how much money you put into it. So I've seen the arguments on both sides. I don't think there's any right or wrong take on this particular conversation. Either way, some people aren't going to be happy. Some people are going to be content about it. So it's a hard one. It's a very hard one, and we can see it from all perspectives.
Oh yeah, and I don't want to downplay, like everything is more expensive than it was a few years ago. In my country, I'm staring down the barrel of sort of this kind of monthly cost, this kind of yearly cost here is it's not it's a significant amount to everybody. I'm about to be hit by Liz Truss's kind of mortgage bombshell in my own personal finances. So this is I'm looking at finding.
Oh, you
this
guys got
monthly.
rid of Liz Truss. Well, what's going on over
there? Helpfully, I was locked into a much cheaper deal prior to that incident. So I come off my cheap mortgage deal at the end of this year, and it's going to cost me more than this annualized cost a month. Thanks to Liz Truss. So thank you, Liz Truss. But enough about my personal finances. But there is I think so all things cost now. Everything costs money. You turn around, somebody wants you to subscribe to something for an introductory price that then turns out to be a small fortune next month. I think the cost is what it is, and that's ultimately personal matter. I think the thing I just wanted to put in perspective is I still think if you're sort of wargaming on a budget, this is a cheaper wargaming experience than many you'll find, which is whether that's cheap enough is an entirely different section. So we'll see. But there you go.
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see a little bit more proxying going on, especially if things get tighter financially across the world. I mean, there is talk about recessions and all that fun stuff, and I think we're going to start seeing maybe some of those crop up. The question of how the community approaches it and addresses it. I mean, Mantic has always been pretty pretty good with that kind of proxy, because you can in Kings of War you can proxy using Warhammer models and use it in their game. With this, there's not really been any clear indication of what the rule is. I think the general rule is if you're playing in the tournament, you have to use legit figures. But I don't know whether they're against, hey, if you're playing in private and you just want to make something cool, go nuts. I haven't really seen them say that. So I think that's going to be something we might see more of over the next coming year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ronnie is going to sneak into your basement and look at your miniatures and smash them with a hammer if he doesn't like them, right? Like, I'm fairly confident Ronnie ain't going to do that. So what you do, at home is your own business. I can understand why they've got a partnership with Microsoft. They can't, at events, go, rip off Microsoft's IP at our events, that'll be cool. Like, I can understand business-wise why that won't be a thing. I think, as ever, I'm somebody who, for Marvel, has 3D printed models because I wanted alternate sculpts, although I bought the models anyway. For this game, I haven't kind of 3D printed any proxy models, but I've 3D printed terrain. I have 3D printed a carbine to convert onto one of my models. It's a the kind of the use of stuff is I think there's a whole topic in 3D printing and in kind of IP protection and what that means kind of today, and kind of what the moral rights or wrongs of 3D printing in the hobby are. There's probably a whole podcast on its own, and I think people are probably itching for us to shut up and start talking about some ODSTs.
Yeah, but to go back to your Ronnie thing, Ronnie was at Gen Con over the last weekend, so if you notice your basement being broken into and your models smashed up, it probably was Ronnie. So just a little heads up on that. So actually, I just want to talk ahead on the last piece that you mentioned just before we actually got into this piece. Is you heard a few mumblings about boxes, of having too many boxes. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a lot of comments about this. So this is there was a lot of comment, and this might be a divide between me and other people. A lot of kind of comments about kind of, oh, it's another box I've got to store coming out. I'm sort of going like, it just seemed like a really weird place for people's brains to go immediately. Was like, another big box. I'm going to have to find somewhere to store this. I'm not sure what the short of sort of them inventing some TARDIS-style gaming transport kit. I'm not clear what the solution to that would be. But it was just an interesting one. I mean, maybe because I don't keep my boxes, I'm not, I'm not fussed about that. I don't know.
I think that's a lot of people that do collect board games and gaming and all, and me myself, I'm a victim of this as well. I like to keep the original boxes. Like I've got Kings of War, a Storm in the Shires box. I've still got that box, even though all the models have taken out and I've emptied it. I've still got the original Flashpoint Spartan edition box, and I've still got my Banished edition box. And I think people like to keep those boxes, and some people would like just to keep that original packaging because they don't buy additional stuff to store those models. Luckily, I'm kind of moving away from that, but I'm still keeping the boxes. So I kind of get it, but I think it reaches a point of like we need hoarder therapy here. Like gamer hoarder therapy is like there's only so many boxes you can hold on to when it stops being a collector's kind of thing and more you're just doing it for just so you have something around your room to look pretty. So I think that's what people kind of are hitting at, is that they're just running out of room for that because they're getting these boxes. It looks like this is going to be the trend as well, especially for Halo Flashpoint, is that we're going to get, we've got the Spartan now, we've got the Banish, we've got the ODST, and we're going to probably get about 2 a year, and these boxes are going to keep growing and growing. So there's going to have to be a point where you just have to start to get rid of them, and I don't think a lot of people want to do that. So I think the best assumption I can get is people just want a smaller box for just the expansions, because these are expansion packs, essentially expansion sets to the game, and having massive boxes like this for every single expansion may be a little bit too much and kind of want something smaller. So that's the best assumptions, that maybe people just want something a little bit more compact for their particular collection. But I think it's just a case, if you start doing that, you're going to have to try and build something specific for every single collector, and it's just never going to make anyone happy.
Much as you can't ever release anything at the right speed, right? As we talked about in the kind of release, kind of in the cycle section, you can't package everything perfectly for everybody. I mean, as far as I'm aware, what we've seen with the Banished releases in September, all of those parts are coming out individually. So if you don't want a big box, presumably they'll do the same thing with the ODSTs. So probably around January we'd see them boxed individually. I mean, you've still got to store the stuff you want, right? Like, it's still got to go somewhere. I think you've kind of got to, and I say this realizing I have far too many game boxes in the room I'm sat in right now. You probably do have to at some point like declutter, and that will be part and parcel. But what has helped is these are gorgeous looking boxes, and they have been recently. So maybe you don't want to. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, I'm probably going to keep the most recent one and probably start dismantling the older stuff. Or maybe even just give them out as maybe develop little packages to give to people that are interested in the game. Like over the weekend, I actually played for the first time with my niece. She's 13 now, and we started playing the game. I did make her cry because I bit her too many times. Now, I'm not proud of that fact, but it's quite hard to pretend to lose when you introduce a new rule and all of a sudden it doesn't apply in a round or a move that I'm trying to do. So, Mackenzie, if you're listening to this, I am sorry that I made you cry. But ultimately, when you're introducing more people to the game, you could develop packages, maybe hand off those boxes, so at least it has some kind of second life instead of just dismantling and throwing it in the bin.
And I'm the filthy competitive player. And you're the one making children cry. Look,
I don't get to play the game much. There's no tournaments around me. I mean, I play with my partner. I'm pretty sure she does it just because she feels sorry for me. And this is the first person to really want to play the game. So, oh well.
I do think, that is what it is. I'm not going to go any further with that.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll dive into the what everyone was looking forward to listening to is the new expansion pack, First Feet into Hell, and it's the ODSTs. And looks like this is actually based off the Halo 3 ODSTs. We actually have two new limited edition heroes with Buck and Deer. And a little note, Deer is the first female hero that we've actually got in the game, which is really good to see considering there's not enough female representation, I would say, in wargaming in general. So having actual female character on the table that you can play is really, really exciting. The first thing that did stand out to me is that it is based off the game, so it looks like we're going back in time. So we're not sticking with that Halo Infinite timeline. We're actually going back and actually dealing with Halo 3 era kind of aesthetic and look. And we know that because Buck actually ends up being a Spartan 4 in Halo 5, so he's actually upgraded to a Spartan 5, and he actually marries Deer. A little tidbit in the books as well. They get married, but it looks like we're now jumping around in the timeline, which actually is a very exciting development because it means we can go anywhere now. If that means they can go to Halo 3, does that mean we could go to Halo 1, maybe even Reach? Could we see some Spartan 3s on the table in the future? What they're limited in doing now is a bit, we don't actually know the rules of the licensing agreement, but at least this is indicating we can dive into different games in the era. So with the ODST announcement, First Feed in Hell, I'll flick it for you, James, for your first off impressions. What's your feelings when you first saw it? Was that something you expected, or was it something that generally surprised you?
I was really pleasantly surprised. I thought we'd get ODST at some point, right? Because they're very popular. There was a whole game based on them. I'm surprised it's so soon. I was sort of hoping for like another, the Flood or a Prometheans or kind of another faction. But this is, it is great to see the ODST. So I was just very excited. I played a lot of ODST. I'm back on release, and it's great to see these. It's great to see another big box. Another box that looks quite good value wise, and fantastic. More interesting choices for my Spartans.
Yeah, I think I'm on your side of a bit surprised of what they dropped. From what we know, ODSTs are part of that Spartan faction, so the UNSC faction. It's kind of curious to see if we're actually going to go alternate, so we're going to go USNC or UNSC, yeah, whatever the acronym is, then Banished, and then back to UNSC, and then maybe back to Banished again. or is it just really whatever they feel like they're going to put on the table, whatever the game needs, they're going to be putting on the table? I kind of expected a third faction actually with this drop of the Swords of Sanghelios, and that's with the Arbiter in the current Infinite timeline. That's actually just the elites who have kind of separated from the Covenant. They're kind of the good guys, the ones that are allied with the UNSC. So I kind of expected that, so we could see the Arbiter, see the elites, because we've got the brutes and we've got the humans. We didn't really have anything with the elites, because like my niece, just to dive back into that, she really loves the elites. She played them on the table and she really wanted more. And the fact that we haven't really got that yet, I was a little bit surprised, but I've got a feeling that's going to be its own thing in the future. So yeah, having the ODSDs, I think a lot of excitement online, especially people that didn't normally talk about the game. I think that's really cool. I think ODST has still a really good reputation, Halo 3 ODST. There's actually been 2 games with ODSTs at the forefront. We've got Halo 3 ODST. There's also Fireteam Raven, which is that game that were set up in arcades where we have actually hold that gun and then you shoot the screen, and it's actually based off the original Halo. So there's actually been 2 games of ODSTs, if you're curious out there. So I'm really excited for them coming out. I think it'll be interesting to how they make these guys competitive. I think, James, you had a theory that maybe because they're orbital drop troopers, they fall from the sky, that deployment may be a different rule for them, because they can actually deploy anywhere to keep them a little bit fresh, because they are technically... So ODSTs, for those that are out there that don't know, so they're called orbital drop shock troopers. So effectively, you've got Marines, and then you've got the next step up, which is ODSTs, and then you've got essentially Spartans or Spartan 4s. Now, ODSTs are kind of like our equivalent of Navy SEALs, and I actually did just recently look up what the British version of them were, and there was something funny. Hold on, I have to look this up. Hold up.
SBS, I expect, or SAS.
Oh, they're called Special Boat Service. Yeah. Which isn't as impressive as Navy SEALs, I have to admit. Like, if you're going, oh no, the Navy SEALs are coming, oh no, the Special Boat Service is coming, which one are you going to fear? I'm just saying, come up with a different name.
Does sound like a water taxi, I'll grant you.
It does. Even in New Zealand, we have the SAS, and at least that sounds a little bit fearful. Anyway, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they make these characters competitive, considering they're not Spartans, they're not as tough, they don't have shields as well. So far, the brutes and the Spartans have had shields as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how they actually are integrated on the table. James, what's your feeling on what's your expectations, I guess? What's your guess of how they're going to be played on the table?
I mean, it'd be interesting. So your initial thought might be that they're going to be cheaper. I think, quite interestingly, Mantic are somewhat hamstrung by their points limit and how cheap they can make things. I think so. I'm not sure if they'll be cheaper. My guess would be lower armor, higher mobility than the Spartans. That would probably be where so maybe there's a special order that lets them respawn in a different way. Maybe they're allowed to sort of start the game in reserve and drop in somehow. There are some rules for that in Dead Zone. There's any number of sort of those kind of things. But my guess would be kind of faster, and it is a total guess. I would guess the sort of more mobile, less armoured would probably be the sort of where I would come down on my expectation for these guys.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's going to be very curious of how they make them competitive, considering it feels like the brutes have got their one way of playing, they've got the Spartans have their own way, and it'll be interesting to see how the ODSTs kind of slot in there, especially how with this introduction we will start to see Spartan ODST combinations, and especially with a couple of those units being the bullfrogs, I believe. Yeah, the bullfrogs, the flying and having that mechanic being more at the forefront of gameplay. I think it's going to be super interesting. So I'll just go through what's actually in the new expansion pack. So we've got the limited edition Gunnery Sergeant Buck, and then limited edition Captain Veronica Dare. So we've got those are the 2 new hero units. We've also got 2 ODST captains, 2 ODST second lieutenants, 4 ODST special purpose troopers, 4 ODST Air Assault Bullfrog, which is kind of assumed they're going to have that air keyword there. We've got 4 ODST Firebreak, which is showing a flamethrower kind of weapon that we're going to have on the table. It'll be interesting to see how that works. We've got ODST Faction Order Dice. Now, the rest of it kind of is something that we've got with every box. So this is kind of indicating what the trend is going to be going forward. So we've got ODST Faction Order Dice, ODST Faction D8s. We've got the new Mombasa player mat, I should say, the new Mombasa terrain cards, which, to be honest, from looking at them, they look pretty impressive. I'm actually very impressed, especially with that tower, that card tower, and it's definitely showing how much more they're doing with that terrain, because I'm pretty impressed by that stuff. We also got the ODST Desperate Measures expansion, so the expansion's called Desperate Measures, and we also got obviously tokens and new weapons and unit cards and the special orders, the standard stuff. So it looks like we're starting to see what we're going to get with every box, and they're kind of keeping it quite consistent as well, which is indicating kind of what we may see in the future of, like, eventually you're going to be able to come to the game and go, all right, I want to get brutes, and you'll get the brute box, or I want to get ODSTs, I'm going to get the ODST box, or in the future maybe elite box, and kind of have these kind of boxes that are specific to a particular race or character or kind of theme as well. So that's really cool to see. From all those things there, James, was there anything there that popped out at you that kind of you thought that was really, really cool? Anything like that?
I mean, the terrain is like another evolution. The terrain does look a little less robust. I worry about whatever the kind of canopy on the tower is, and some of those kind of stood up light features on that kind of narrow tower. They're clearly playing with shapes a bit more, so it looks like there are partial cubes, at least half cubes on some of these terrains. If you look at the back of the kind of the picture of the board, that looks to be a half width, 2 height tower. Half, we're only just starting to play with kind of half width cubes in the official terrain, which have their own rules. And that'll be quite interesting. Similarly, the tower itself looks like it's kind of got half cubes and potentially a quarter cube on the corner. So that's just interesting. I mean, all the rules for those are already in the core game. That's already a thing. The buildings look a little lower, like those nearby structures with the red ring round the outside. They don't look as tall. Like the original 1 height stuff looks a lot more like the tower on the right-hand corner of this map, which looks to be a full cube in height. So I'm assuming those kind of structures in the foreground are 1 full cube height tall. But if they aren't, obviously those interact with the rules in a different way to everything else as well. So I think just generally a really nice and interesting set, and playing with the kind of what's available model and terrain wise for you. So that's really good, and that really leaps out. Obviously, we haven't got any rules yet for the models, so we don't know rules wise what's there. Just on contents breakdown for the minis, it has been confirmed. So that in the majority of cases, this is like the Spartan edition. So you get 2 versions of each model. So you can see you've got what we assume is a firebreak with a flamethrower. There are 2 firebreaks with flamethrowers. We know there are 4 firebreaks in total in the box. We can see 4 bullfrogs in here. They're the ones with the jetpacks. There are 2 of each of the same bullfrog. So this is a lot more like the Spartan edition, where buying this box gets you all of the playable models. You don't need to buy another copy of this box to get 2 of each playable model, which is the limit when list building. You're only allowed 2 of the same model, right? So buying this box gets you everything you could use. That's a bit different to the banished box, where there's only 1 of each variant. So if you actually wanted to play 2 brute berserkers with energy shields, you're going to need to buy a second banished box, or buy one of the boxes that's coming out in September to give you more options. So just something to be aware of. This is actually a better, in terms of content, you're getting more getting more bang for your buck out of this box than the banished box, which is again great news.
Yeah, I mean the models are smaller, so I would assume that you. I mean, assuming they're smaller, because if they are still staying with the canon scale, these models are going to be just a little bit smaller than the Spartan models that we got with the Spartan edition and Recon edition. So that's if you've got the Spartans, look at them around about that size, because I'm assuming they're going to stick to it. So yeah, it's good to see them doing that, and it'll be interesting to see what the uptake is. I think what's exciting me is a lot of people are talking about the game now and pointing towards this ODST than they were before, and I think it's actually going to bring in a lot of new eyes to the game. So I think good on Mantic for picking the next theme, a next kind of like box right. I feel like it's right. I think if they want to keep that good momentum up, they should definitely vary it with a few more kind of something that's a little bit more colorful next time, considering kind of how ODST the look ODST 3 Halo 3 ODST look. This is a new Mombasa, all kind of darker look. Maybe the next one is a little bit more color to it, maybe some Covenant. So I think it's definitely bringing in a lot more eyes, based on my perspective as well. And one thing I did actually notice, I don't know if you noticed this, James, do you notice the fire tokens as well on the screenshot?
Yeah, I see these. So whether that's a function of something like gameplay wise, in terms of like, is this something to do with the, is that something to do with the flamethrowers? I get flashbacks to Space Hulk and flaming squares in Space Hulk, or is this, or is that part of a mission potentially, and kind of a mission token? Don't know. It'd be interesting to find out. But like a persistent fire effect would be really cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like one of those cases that the flamethrower, they burn someone and they, for a round, maybe still got the flame on it. Or we could even be seeing incendiary whatever grenades. Those grenades that you throw in the fire. Yeah, those ones.
Well, there are some teal limited use item tokens on the sort of between the weapon tokens and the weapon cards of the screenshot. So yes, that's entirely possible. It could be incendiary grenades. It could work with both. It could have the same special rule, like when a cube is targeted with this weapon, it gains that on fire status, and then anybody that enters the cube has to take a test. Get to not get damaged by the fire. Similarly, it might be that you're setting models on fire so they gain a status like in the same way they have pinned now. Maybe there's a different sort of status you can get from the flamethrower. Who knows? But I mean, or it's a scenario where you've got to set. Put out fires. Maybe who knows? But there's there's certainly a flamethrower in there, and there's a flamethrower in the. There's a flamethrower on one of the models, and there's a flamethrower in the pickup weapon drop tokens that are provided in the box. So, looks like we're going to get some sort of heavier weapons for that. So that's really good.
Yeah, we got some repeats there. We got the battle rifle there, but we do have the SMG. That looks like to be new. We've also got, looks like a DMR, it looks like there as well, shotgun. So there's got to be a mix of stuff we've seen before in terms of weapons and stuff that is brand new as well. So it looks like we're not going to get new weapons from every single time. It's not everything will be new. It looks like we're going to start to see a mix of, because I mean, they had to do it eventually. They can't just keep on introducing new weapons because they're going to run out of weapons. So they're definitely reusing some of the ones that are already in the game.
Yeah, I mean, but we haven't had anybody start with a battle rifle before, and that's a very good gun. Like, that is a very good gun. We haven't had people starting with the pistols. I presume it's the SMG that the Red Bullfrog is holding, the one with a sort of a silencer on it. You've got DMR, you've got that flamethrower. Sort of, you've got a guy lunging with a knife, which is interesting. Be interested if that's as good as a Spartan knife or not. And you got somebody with a shotgun, so you are going to see the human weapons repeat, right? But these do look pretty decent. The sculpts look really good. They are ODST, so they're quite grey in this paint job. I'll probably try and pep mine up a little bit. I suspect Microsoft have told them they have to paint them like ODST, so they have to look kind of grey-brown, which is fine. I think they could possibly have picked out some of the accoutrements on the sculpts a bit more. They look gorgeous, but they are a little bit kind of BattleTech uniform colour, which is just a little bit of a shame in the detailing. But I suspect that's a Microsoft problem rather than a paint job problem. And when you get your own.
Yeah, when you've seen the community just run with it, like you've seen some of the elites out there Sungheili models of what people have painted. Some of the paint jobs are amazing, and obviously not to Canon. So, I mean, when people get their hands on here, I'll be very surprised if we don't see some really wicked paint jobs from them.
Yeah, I mean, these are really well painted. They're just limited by the color scheme, right? And Microsoft will have imposed a color scheme because they have to look like ODST. These are gorgeously painted. And I can't wait to get my hands on them and sort of and have a go. And these, I mean, if these guys are cheaper, some of the guns they've got are fantastic for if they are cheaper than Spartans. I suspect they're not. I suspect these come in at the upper end of 30 points. I mean, if I was gambling, I would say these are going to come in at the upper end of 30 points, like 38s, 37s, and they're going to be quite mobile. But we'll see. And I'm certainly looking forward to playing Buck. Buck in this version sporting his helmet, presumably so they don't have to pay Nathan Fillion a load of money. And then, that's definitely. I was disappointed. He is Buck, but he's not got. He's got his helmet on. And you go, no, actually, probably cost me an extra £10 a box because they'd have to give Nathan Fillion a load of money. Not that I'm complaining. That guy's brilliant, but still, still probably why he's got a helmet on.
Yeah, exactly, and it's the same problem with Veronica Dare. It's Trisha Heffer. I think she was from Battlestar Galactica, the blonde one, I believe.
Oh, was it? Okay.
She was.
I don't remember Dare at all. Like, did not. What game was that from?
Halo 3 ODST. She was the one that we're trying to find. She's the
of
one
course.
Yeah.
The main I remember the main thing I remember about ODST was that long run on the bridge at the end, and how annoying that level was. But that's cool.
James, she's the only woman in the game. Does that help?
Well, other than Cortana and Keys and various other
not an ODST, not an ODST.
And Halsey. Oh, actually, okay, fair enough. I mean, most Spartans have got most Spartans and Troopers have got their helmets on anyway. You wouldn't necessarily know. Exactly. But yeah, okay, that's good. Anyway, but great to see these models, and they'll be really great to see them as part of the the main game.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's definitely going to open up what's next. I mean, that's the big one. Now that we know that we can bounce around on the timeline a little bit, I think they're definitely going to try and get a little bit for everybody kind of feel. I think this really hit that nostalgia kind of more grounded kind of feel, wargaming feel that isn't really hitting the spot for the modern day Halo players. That the modern day game's not really hitting for them. So I think this is why it's bringing a new audience. I think they should definitely, with the next one, hit off some of that nostalgia feel, maybe Reach, and maybe even bring the Spartan 3s into that. I think that would be really cool. There's so many possibilities to go with this. I mean, obviously, we won't know until well after October. So for those out there, this is due to ship on the 31st of October. You can pre-order it now. Typically, they put in an end date, or make sure you pre-order by this date in order to get it by the end of October or whatever, but they haven't actually done that yet, so I don't know if there's going to be a particular cutoff date for that. I think they're starting to get a feel of what the demand is. So, I mean, just get your pre-order in now just to guarantee that you're going to get it on time. But I think it's definitely based off some of the videos that Ronnie is putting out and what's coming off the printing press and what's getting out the door from Mantic. I think this game definitely has legs. I think they've got about a 5-year plan as well, and we're only year 2, I think it is, of that plan. So it'll be very interesting to see where we go next. So I'm extremely, extremely excited. And if anyone out there has any questions about what's coming up and the questions they want to pose, definitely flick them to us so we can dive deep into some of these topics of what's about the game and what's going to be the game going forward, really. I think it's going to be very interesting. All right, so James, I'll chuck it to you, James. I need a breather. Hold up.
No, I mean, I think that broadly covers what we want to talk about today, right? So that there's a fantastic new box previewed. I had Windmill slammed pre-order on that within minutes of it coming up. Coming up for pre-order, so I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on that. I think the game's in a really good space. In terms of the podcast, I think we'll look to do some more content as we run into kind of the end of season 0, and obviously when there's more news. But as we move into the end of season 0, and as we move towards that balance patch, I think there'll be loads to talk about. So we're not going anywhere, really loving this new release. It's great to see everyone's painted Banish models. I've been on holiday, so I've not had a chance to get any paint on mine yet. So, it's great to see those on, those on people's, those on people's social media feeds. That's really good.
Instagrams, that's the word. But yeah, I really do also appreciate everyone tuning in for my unboxing video. That was something new and different for me. I was a bit self-conscious being on camera and a lot of people seeing me for the first time, so I do appreciate everyone who left a nice little comment there. And yeah, thanks for that. And I probably will be doing them in the future as well, just something different. It's not going to be the most polished awesome thing in the world. Their whole idea is just a bit of fun, and this is what the whole project is about, is a bit of fun, and for us to make videos of a hobby that we are really, really into. And so I'll be doing another unboxing, probably of the ODST, but if there's anything out there you guys would like to see, just reach out and we're more than happy to do it, because I'm going to have a lot of downtime in the near future. And with that, I think we should go into the last segment, which we don't know what the name of it is going to be. But James, do you want to introduce the segment, or do you want me to bridge it for you?
So we had some positive. I'm happy to introduce it. So we had some positive feedback about my "While I'm Complaining" segment at the end of the last episode. We will look for another name for that. So if please write in if you've got a better idea for this segment at the end, or I'd be quite British and moan about something. So
yeah, I suggested he should name it "Because I'm British." ... and then dive into whatever it is. But I don't know whether that's because I'm not British. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
That's fine. And I think I think just so again, this is just a segment, right? I kind of look at something that something that maybe where people can help out by being by making the community's lives easier or people's lives easier. This week, I just wanted to very quickly talk about dice. I drive my regular playing opponent nuts by kind of. I have a thing about people rolling dice, although that's not what we're going to talk about today. I did just want to talk about people about dice and whether you can read dice from across the board. So it was sort of triggered by the Banished box, which sadly has this thing that for some reason all manufacturers, and I'd love to hear from, because Games Workshop did this as well, I'd love to hear from kind of a game developer why this happens, but the number of special dice you get that are functionally illegible from more than a foot away is quite extreme. Warhammer Underworlds used to be bad for this. It's just like, here are the special dice for this faction. Good luck reading them. The Banished dice are quite, particularly the Orders dice, are really quite difficult to read from across the table, particularly if you aren't sort of working in kind of optimal lighting conditions, which is often the case when you're gaming, right? You're often in a dingy gaming store. If you're not directly under a light, it is quite difficult to read those dice. But there's also kind of been a general trend, lots of people are, as I do, have their own D8s that aren't the standard D8s. So you've got some that match the colour of your fire team or whatever. I just have some different ones because I've got some lying around. But it's really important that you can, for gameplay, that you can see what's going on across the board, right? That you can read people's dice, that you can follow the flow of the game, that you can read your own dice effectively. And so it's just a bit of a plea generally to people to sort of like, can you just check that your dice are actually legible when you throw them? Because the number of people who are presumably spending quite a bit of money on dice that are illegible is quite spectacular at the moment. I do like one of the things I do like about looking at these ODST dice, the new Orders dice in the ODST set. If they're anything like this when they're released, those look really kind of visible and legible from across the board. And not everyone's got perfect eyesight. The gaming conditions aren't always optimal. Just having dice that are really clear just helps speed everything up. So it's just a bit of a play. If you're investing in your own dice, just do a bit of a zoom out test. Like stand a bit further back from your monitor when you're ordering them online. Stand a bit further back from them in your FLGS. Like, just make sure they're legible from across the board. It makes everybody's life easier. And similarly, I'd love to know why dice wind up so illegible from sort of some of the manufacturers, because it's not a Mantic problem; it's a general kind of thing. The number of custom dice that are like basically illegible is quite interesting. Anyway, that's my little moan at the end of the episode.
That's fair enough. So just for the ones that are listening to this, obviously, or everyone should be listening to this, the dice that he's referring to is the banished dice, which is basically red on grey, or is it on silver? Would you say silver or grey? It looks more silver than grey.
Yeah, whichever it's supposed to be.
Yeah, well, so red on silver. Let's say silver. Now the dice that they looks like that is coming with the ODSD Feet First in Hell. By the way, Feet First in Hell is the slogan for ODSD in the canon, which is why it was called that. It looks like the D8s are they're actually green and white. The white is the numbers, and the green it's like a vomit green kind of. I don't know if you call it goblin green, but like a lighter green. And it looks like the command dice looks to be grey on white. So I would say this is silver if that's grey. So it looks like grey on white for the command dice. And if you're just looking at the screenshot, the dice definitely jumps out of you, and that's a clear indicator of what James is saying there. I think the red dice, the red faction dice that came with the brute set, I like that one. That's like red, and I think it's red and silver. It looks like the numbers being silver and the red being what's your feelings on the red dice?
I don't think they're as bad. I think there's a little bit thing that can happen with some dice where if they are too gloss, if you're playing in the right light conditions, they get difficult to read. But I don't have a big problem with the red dice. It's mostly those orders dice that are sort of awkwardly difficult to read from across the board. Similarly, and it's a pet peeve, but it is something that makes the game harder to play, right? Because you're trying to do 15 things at once. You're trying to play quickly. You're trying to play efficiently, particularly in organised play. If you can't see your opponent's dice, it just slows the game down because you've got to spend more time kind of glaring at them. More mistakes will happen, right? As both of you misread the situation or misread the dice. It's just a little thing, but I'm kind of curious about why it happens.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if any game developers out there want to put their input, go ahead. Anyone from Mantic? I know we've got the best relationship with Mantic, so I'm sure they'll reach out to us and let us know why that is. But yeah, I think that's about it. Do you have anything else you want to go over there, James?
No, I think it's about an hour. Really excited for the new stuff, loving the game, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day, or night, or whenever it is.